Before we begin, if you enjoy real stories about power, betrayal, and quiet revenge inside high-stakes corporate worlds, make sure you subscribe to this channel. Because stories like this don't come from imagination. They come from experience, and my name is Andrew Hoffman. I'm 52 years old. And the day this story begins, I already knew I was about to be executed, not with bullets, not with shouting, but the most common weapon in corporate America, a PowerPoint presentation. The conference room smelled like fresh coffee, and something else, something colder, sharper, betrayal. Rachel Montgomery stood at the head of the mahogany table, perfectly centered, perfectly composed. Her $2,500 Navy Armani suit caught the soft glow of the projector as she clicked to the next slide. That was the title. I didn't need to read the slide deck to know what came next. I'd been watching this slow-motion execution for 6 months. I sat there silently, hands folded, posture calm, while every instinct in my body screamed the truth. This meeting wasn't about strategy. It wasn't about leadership. It was about removing me in front of my entire cybersecurity division. It all started in January 2024. Rachel Montgomery became CEO. Stanford MBA. Impressive resume formatting. Board connections through her father, William Montgomery, the company's founder. Buzzwords flowed from her mouth effortlessly, but operational experience, zero. Her very first company-wide meeting focused on transforming legacy operational paradigms in defense contracting. That word, legacy. When someone uses legacy like it's a disease, inside a room full of people who've spent decades keeping government systems secure, you don't hear innovation, you hear purge. Meridian Defense Solutions wasn't a Silicon Valley startup chasing hype. We weren't burning venture capital for press coverage. We held active contracts with the NSA, the Department of Defense Homeland Security, $53 million annually. Real systems. Real consequences. Systems that controlled power grids, water treatment facilities, logistics networks that couldn't afford failure. After the 2019 data breach nearly destroyed the company, I rebuilt everything, every threat analysis framework, every intrusion detection model, every response protocol. 8 years of my life went into building something that actually worked. But Rachel didn't care about operational security. She cared about Forbes profiles and IPO narratives. The young CEO disrupts a stodgy defense contractor. That story looked great in board decks. It just didn't protect national infrastructure. And here's what Rachel didn't see on her slides. My divorce settlement. My son, Jake, entering his senior year at Virginia Tech's engineering program. $31,000 a year. At 52, getting terminated didn't mean a short break. It meant 6 to 8 months of scrambling, assuming another contractor would even transfer my top secret clearance. My base salary was $185,000. Matching that meant relocating across the country, or taking a brutal pay cut. This wasn't ego. This was survival. The warning signs started in February. Meetings scheduled without me. Capability assessments I only learned about from Alex Turner, a junior engineer I'd trained myself. When I asked Rachel about it, she smiled. That MBA programmed smile. We're evaluating fresh approaches to threat mitigation. Fresh approaches, in cybersecurity. Like asking a philosophy major for fresh approaches to cardiac surgery. They didn't remove me all at once. That would have been too obvious. Instead, they started erasing me quietly. By March, my name stopped appearing on Pentagon briefing calendars. Meetings I had led for years suddenly had updated presenters. I noticed it the first time when a calendar invite hit my inbox, and I wasn't on it. Same client. Same contract. Different lead. I didn't say anything at first. I wanted to understand the pattern before reacting. The first presentation I was replaced on involved DHS infrastructure protection, a system I had personally designed after the 2021 ransomware surge. Rachel sat at the end of the table, nodding politely while I explained threat vectors. Then she turned her head slightly and smiled at Brooke. Brooke, what's your perspective on integrating artificial intelligence paradigms here? I remember blinking, not because I was angry, but because I was genuinely confused. Brooke Chambers had been with Meridian for 73 days. She had a communications degree from USC. Her cybersecurity experience consisted of managing a sorority's Instagram account and calling IT support when her Wi-Fi dropped. Yet there she was, being positioned as the future of our national security contracts. Rachel loved how Brooke looked in meetings. Young, confident, marketable. That mattered more than understanding how intrusion detection actually worked. And slowly, everyone else started noticing. Alex Turner stopped by my office one afternoon, closing the door behind him. "They scheduled another capability review," he said. "You're not on it." I leaned back in my chair and let that sink in. "How bad is it?" I asked. Alex hesitated. "They're simplifying everything." That word again. Simplifying. By April, client presentations looked less like technical evaluations and more like venture capital pitches. Stock photos replaced network diagrams. Buzzwords replaced specifications. I watched Brooke present phrases like AI-enhanced security ecosystems, without explaining a single implementation detail. Pentagon evaluators don't ask polite questions. They interrogate assumptions. They want to know how systems behave when hostile actors attack at 3 in the morning. And Brooke couldn't even explain our firewall architecture. The breaking point came in May. Our annual Department of Defense Threat Assessment Review was scheduled for June 18th. This wasn't a sales meeting. It was a technical examination. A $34 million decision. I had led every one of these reviews since 2020. This year, I wasn't invited to the preparation meetings. When I finally confronted Rachel, she leaned back in her chair, calm and rehearsed. "We're implementing a generational leadership transition," she said. "You've documented everything so thoroughly that knowledge transfer should be seamless." Seamless. As if you could transfer 8 years of institutional knowledge by handing someone a slide deck. I tried to warn her. Carefully. Professionally. "Rachel," I said, "Brooke doesn't understand the technical requirements. These aren't commercial demos. They'll ask about NIST compliance, classified integration, threat vectors." She studied me like outdated software. "Andrew, we need next-generation thinking for younger decision-makers." Younger decision-makers. The Pentagon Review Board averaged 47 years old with decades of operational experience. They weren't looking for disruption. They were looking for reliability. That afternoon, I made a call I'd been postponing. Norman Price, General Counsel, former Navy commander. Unlike Rachel's consultants, Norman understood federal contracts. I sat across from his desk as he pulled up our agreements. After the 2019 breach, the Pentagon had tightened everything. Critical personnel were designated by name. You couldn't just replace them. Norman highlighted a clause on his screen. 180 days notice, he said. Any early removal triggers automatic review. I felt something shift inside me, not relief, not satisfaction, clarity. That night, sitting alone in my kitchen, I ran the numbers. Rachel wanted me gone before June. Federal acquisition regulations said otherwise. If she terminated me, contracts would freeze. Months without renewals would destroy Meridian. And Rachel had no idea. So I started preparing, quietly, documenting everything. Every system. Every algorithm. Not to save the company, but to make sure the truth couldn't be rewritten. By the time June arrived, the game was already decided. The call came at 11:47. I was at my desk, reviewing documentation I already knew by memory, when my secure line lit up. Brian Walsh's voice came through tight, rushed, stripped of its usual confidence. "Andrew, we need you at the Pentagon. Immediately." I didn't ask why. I already knew. I arrived to a room that felt smaller than it should have. The air was thick. Not loud. Not chaotic, just heavy. Rachel stood behind her chair, jacket off, pacing in short, useless steps. Brooke sat frozen in front of her laptop, staring at the screen like it had betrayed her personally. Norman Price was on speakerphone with Colonel Stevens from procurement. No one looked surprised to see me. That told me everything. General Morrison didn't waste time. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't show frustration. That was worse. We asked about your machine learning threat classification methodology, he said. We received marketing language. Silence. We asked about NIST 800-53 control inheritance. He continued. We received abstractions. More silence. Who designed this system? No one answered. Rachel glanced at Brooke. Brooke didn't move. I stepped forward. I did, I said. Every head in the room turned, not dramatically, not emotionally, professionally. Colonel Stevens leaned back slightly. Mr. Hoffman, he said, we were told you were transitioning out of operational leadership. Not yet, I replied. And not without your approval. That landed hard. They gave Meridian 72 hours. 72 hours to provide full technical documentation. Architecture diagrams. Source code samples. Compliance mappings, not summaries. Proof. Rachel turned to me the moment the call ended. Tell me what you need, she said. Access, resources, anything. I met her eyes for the first time that day. I need full system access, I said. And I'll present the response personally. Her face tightened. But she nodded. She didn't have a choice. That night, I stayed at the office, not late. All night. I pulled 8 years of work together, not to rescue Meridian. To establish facts. Every algorithm traced to my authorization. Every decision logged under my clearance. This wasn't about ego. It was about accountability. Friday morning, Rachel called an emergency all-hands meeting. The entire division packed into the main conference room. Finance. Legal. Board members. Everyone sensed the shift. Rachel spoke carefully, choosing every word like it might explode. Andrew Hoffman will be leading our technical response to the Department of Defense, she said. His expertise is essential. I stood slowly. Before I prepare anything, I said, I need clarification about my role. The room went silent. Rachel blinked. What clarification? 3 weeks ago, I said calmly. You told the board I was transitioning to an advisory position. I let that sit. If I'm no longer senior leadership, I continued, someone else should handle this. Everyone understood the implication. No one else could. Norman looked down at his laptop. Then up. Rachel didn't look at me. William Montgomery finally spoke. What are the contractual implications? Norman cleared his throat. Andrew Hoffman is designated key personnel on multiple active DoD contracts, he said. Any change requires 180 days notice and formal review. The board absorbed that in silence. Rachel didn't move. The meeting ended without decisions. But the power dynamic had already shifted. Rachel followed me into the hallway afterward. We need to work together, she said. The company depends on this. I agree, I replied. The company does. I didn't say anything else. Monday morning, I delivered the documentation. 847 pages. No filler. No marketing. Just truth. By afternoon, the Pentagon approved continuation. Rachel celebrated. She thought the crisis was over. It wasn't. Tuesday morning, I didn't go to the office. I went downtown. K Street, Patriot Systems Corporation. Anthony Rodriguez greeted me like someone who already knew the outcome. We've been expecting you, he said. We talked for 90 minutes. Roles. Authority. Compensation. He didn't hesitate. Neither did I. Wednesday, I submitted my resignation, not to HR. Not to Rachel. To General Counsel. With mandatory DoD notification attached. Key personnel departure. Automatic review. No workaround. By noon. Phones were ringing. By evening. Rachel had called me 17 times. I didn't answer. The board meeting was scheduled for Friday. I didn't attend. I was already gone. When Rachel finally found me in the parking garage, she looked smaller. Not weaker, just exposed. Name your terms, she said. I shook my head. This isn't about terms, I replied. It's about consequences. Some people call it revenge. I don't. I call it alignment. Skills belong where they're respected. Systems survive when experience is valued. Everything else corrects itself. She stood there for a long moment after I said that. The parking garage was quiet. Too quiet for a company fighting for its survival. Rachel looked like someone seeing numbers for the first time, numbers she couldn't spin. "Andrew," she said softly, "you're destroying everything my father built." I shook my head. "No," I replied. "I'm revealing what happens when experience is treated like an inconvenience." She didn't argue. She already knew. The Department of Defense didn't react emotionally. They never do. They reacted procedurally. The moment my resignation hit their system, every contract where my name appeared entered automatic review.no renewals. No expansions. No flexibility. Just process. 6 to 9 months of scrutiny. For a company dependent on predictable government revenue, that was a death sentence. Inside Meridian, panic set in fast. Emergency meetings. Consultants flown in. Slide decks rewritten overnight. But slides don't answer technical questions. People do. And I was no longer there. Alex Turner joined Patriot 2 weeks later. He didn't celebrate. He didn't brag. He just said, "I want to work somewhere that understands what we actually do." By September, half my former team followed. Talent migrates toward gravity, and gravity is competence. Rachel lasted until October. Quarterly revenues dropped 43%. The Pentagon informed Meridian that capability review would extend into the following year. The board voted no confidence. An interim CEO was installed. Someone with real government contracting experience. Someone who understood that buzzwords don't secure infrastructure. I didn't attend the meeting. I didn't need to. I was already deep into my new role, new systems, new authority. Same mission. Protect what matters. Some people later asked me if I felt guilty. If I regretted not warning her more clearly. I didn't. I had warned her. Multiple times. She just didn't speak the language of consequences. Here's the truth most boardrooms don't like hearing. Institutional knowledge isn't slow. It's stable. Experience isn't resistance. It's insurance. And when companies confuse confidence with competence, the market corrects them. Every time. Rachel learned that lesson the hard way. But education always costs something, and some lessons are very expensive.